started getting exposed to individuals that were in the drug world and the party world in Miami and all the clubs and all that stuff. So that's where I started to spiral out of control. And
welcome everyone to this great testimony today. We have our very own brother José Paez. He's going to be sharing his testimony, how he went from being in church, out of church, his parents prayed, and now he's back doing great things. You won't want to miss it. Welcome everyone, it is great to be here today. We are none other with our brother José Paez. Bro, thanks for being with us.
thank you for having me.
And sharing what we're gonna hear from you, your testimony. I know I've heard a little bit about it, but I'm so excited to hear everything. You have so much to share with us. And I know parents are gonna wanna hear this, and anyone, if you're young, you're gonna wanna hear this. Parents are gonna wanna hear this. So let's start with your background. Share with us a little bit your background, where you're from.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Burbank, California, to apostolic parents, two sisters, an older one, Rocio, and a younger one, Rebecca. We were born into an apostolic home. My parents, since I was born, raised us in church our whole lives. They're immigrants from Ecuador, and so they came from Ecuador to New Jersey and New York area, and then moved to California, and that's where they founded Apostolic Truth and began to have a relationship with God. And so they raised Rocio, myself, and Rebecca in the house of God, and that's kind of how our journey began, is literally being raised on the pew.
Wow! So from California,
yes.
You were in California,
yes.
And then how did you make it to Florida? Because now we're in South Florida.
Yeah,
how was that transition?
I always mess with my brother-in-law Cole, because Cole is, he was a student pastor here, and he's a Clemson fan. But the reason why we moved here was because Rocio got accepted to the University of Miami. And so she had applied to different schools, and then my dad was like really wanting to see if maybe Miami would be a place to live. And so she applied and she got accepted, and so he said the whole family's moving. So we all moved here. I was 15 years old when I moved here from California.
So you guys all came to South Florida because your sister got accepted into college here.
Into the University of Miami, yeah.
Amazing, all right.
Yeah.
So the whole family comes from California here, and I'm guessing you guys were already going to church.
Yeah, so
continue going to church.
Right, we plugged in with the church in down in Miami, a UPC church, and kind of started going there and making friendships there. And there's some people from that church that come to our church now. Brother Marcus Elzy, I grew up with him in that church.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's some people that go to La Roca that came from that church. So it's a lot of good people that came from that church. So when I was 15, I started going to that church with my family there.
I see. So you start going to church, and your family is all into going to church, and your siblings also. What was your encounter with God? Or you're young, you're 13 or 15, you said?
I was 15.
15 years old. What's your encounter? What's your relationship? What's happening with you?
Initially, when I was growing up, I was like really on fire for God, and they had this program called, it was pretty much the elders of the church in California, and I felt a burden when I was young to assist a daughter work. And so I told my parents, hey, I feel like God's calling me to go assist this pastor, just go and see how it can help. And everybody was like so blown away, like I was young, and then I was like serving God and helping out in the church, and not going to the main church with my parents, but going and serving with other young people in the daughter work. So I had this passion and desire to serve God, but when we moved here from California, I had a really hard time in that transition with making friends. So I obviously didn't know anybody. We left everybody that we knew in California. So to start here and make friends, and the youth group, I was kind of like, it was more Rocio's age, and by kind of my age, I didn't have a lot of people in my youth group. So my age group, so it was very difficult. And so I began to, when I started going to public school here in Miami Springs, I started to kind of meet new people and people that weren't serving God. And then I got a job in Publix, and that's where things started to spiral out of control. I made a friend, and we were all baggers. It was me and two other individuals, and one of the guys, he was a drug dealer. So on the side, we were working in Publix, but he was also a drug dealer.
He was young still.
Oh yeah, we were all like 17 years old.
Oh wow, he's
so
17 years old.
We were in high school, and we had work experience, so we would like get out of school early, and then we would have like a schedule from like 2:30 to 8:30, like 6 hours shift. But that's where I started getting exposed to individuals that were in the drug world and the party world in Miami and all the clubs and all that stuff. So that's where I started to spiral out of control. And so that peer pressure and that influence from the world, I started to like get close to these individuals. And then eventually I started smoking marijuana, doing Xanax pills and ecstasy and acid and shrooms. I got involved in a crazy lifestyle of drugs, and obviously alarmed my parents when that started happening.
So your parents, they kind of knew, or they knew, or
in the beginning, I think they were like a little naive to what was going on, because they were like, I think they were kind of a little bit of a denial, like there's no way that my son is in drugs. Mm-hmm. He's just going through a phase. And I kind of told my parents, look, I don't really feel like going to church anymore. They're like, well, that's not an option. You need to go to church. And so, but I just started to get cold with the things of God. I didn't want to really go to church. And then when I finally turned 18, I said, I'm not going to church anymore.
Wow. Okay. So 18, you stopped going to church. From being into the things of God, you kind of went way the other way.
Oh yeah. I just went completely to the world. You know, so like being born and raised in church, mm-hmm. and having, being raised in the family that I was living in, like it's a blessing, it's a privilege. But sometimes, you know, with that rebellious young person spirit, I just wanted to see what the world had to offer. You know, I wanted to see, I wanted to know about this life of drugs and partying and women and all that offers. And so I thought that would be more exciting than the life that I had been living up to that point. And so just started getting exposed to so many different people and not good people that they just, you know, they were lost and I was lost. And so my life just spiraled completely out of control.
Wow, that's a big 180 from you where you were before,
right.
And all because of these friends, so-called friends, yes. that you were having, that they were pushing you.
Right.
And because I'm just trying to understand, so maybe if somebody's watching, a parent is watching, just to get more information. At first, were they selling you the stuff, or they would just say, "Here, take it"?
Yeah, no, it was like it starts off like as a friendship, because you know we were the same age, we're young, we're working at Publix together. But then you start hearing about what they're doing outside of work, and they're getting together with friends. They're getting in cars. They're smoking marijuana in cars. They're doing a lot of things that are obviously illegal activity, and so it seems like exciting and enticing to a young person to say, "Oh wow, like look, like this, me going to church every week and being with my family every week is not exciting enough. So let's see what this world has to offer."
Wow.
And there were like friends that I ended up making later on down the road where my life started to spiral out of control, and there was two specific instances that happened to me where there were like wake-up calls to come back to God.
Wake-up calls, yeah. That's I guess the next part, but I guess that for a while, how it always happens is that nothing happened, right? Like everything was quote unquote okay.
Okay, yeah. Like I was living with my parents and doing drugs and partying and all those kind of things, showing up at the house at 2:00 in the morning. I remember telling my mom to her face, saying, I will never stop smoking marijuana. Like, this is what I do, and this is the life that I live. There's nothing wrong with it. So that tells you how far away I was from God, and how crazy I was in that world.
And I'm sure that was heartbreaking for her to hear, and I'm sure your father also.
My father and mother, my father told me, he said, I sacrificed my entire life. Like, he was a doctor in Ecuador, and he left He left to go to Chile at the time to get his specialty in a specific area of medicine. And my mother was already here in New Jersey. And so they sacrificed a lot to come to this country and start from zero. And then for me to get involved in what I was involved in, it was kind of like a slap in the face to them, you know? And so it was also a trial of their faith, because they were like, what did I do wrong? And what could have I done better? And what kind of relationship could I have had with my family, with my son, that maybe he didn't live the life that I wanted him to live. So there was a lot of guilt that happened with my parents.
A lot of guilt, and yeah, we'll talk about that, because I feel like some parents could be carrying some guilt if their son or daughter is like away from God, being, you know, close to God, and then going away. We'll talk about that. But you said about the two moments that really impacted you.
Yes.
Share those with us.
So there were two specific instances. One being, I was in a drug trip, and I was with a bunch of friends, and we were in this complex in Doral, and I was on shrooms, and so it's a hallucinating drug.
Okay.
And so while I'm on this drug trip, I think that I hear the trumpet sound, and so just panic and fear just set into my spirit, and I start, obviously being born and raised in church, and knowing that when the trumpet sounds, if you're not living right, you're not gonna go to heaven, you know. So I started freaking out. I get in my car, and all the people that are with me, I start like banging on the hood of the car. Oh, there's a Jose, don't leave. you can't drive like this. And I just had to leave. I'm like, I got to see if this is really happening or not. So I get in my car. Thankfully, thank God, nothing happened to me. I didn't kill anybody, which is part of that testimony that God preserved me so many times from different things. So I get home, and only that night was only at the house was only my younger sister Rebecca and my dad, and my mom was in Ecuador. She was already married at the time. So I get to the house, and I'm like, if my sister is not there, then I know the rapture happened. So I go upstairs, I knock on the door, and I say, Rebecca? And she, at the time, she's talking now my brother-in-law, Mark. She's like, Mark, let me call you back. My brother's here and something's wrong. And all I just remember saying was like, I'm covered in the blood of Jesus. I'm covered in the blood of Jesus. Like I was just like crying and breaking down. And in all of that, my sister starts recording me, like, because she knew that when the high would wear off, that fear would wear off, and that she wanted me to remember that moment. So a couple of days later, Cole comes to the house with Rocio, and they like go into the pantry area, and they're like watching this video of me like freaking out and crying and all those kind of things. And so I kind of make my way to the kitchen, and I'm like, and I see them, and they're like, and I have this, I can see what they're doing. So I have this like embarrassed face, and I walk away. And so Cole comes to me, and he had never he was always really kind to me and never really like pushed the God thing on me. We would always talk about sports, and that's kind of how him and I connected. But he told me that day, he said, listen, Jose, can I give you a CD? And I'm like, yeah, sure, fine. So he goes to the car, he pulls out the CD, and the CD is a message called Amnon Had a Friend. And the story is about Amnon being the son of David, King David, and he was the first in line to the throne. But in the story, he's in love with his half-sister Tamar, and he loves her, and he can marry her. Those are things were normal in those times. But he has a friend named Jonadab, and Jonadab begins to be this. The Bible calls him like a cunning, like a cunning person, how they describe the serpent in the garden. And he begins to speak into Amnon's life, and tells him and convinces him to rape Tamar instead of marrying her. So he rapes her, and Tamar just so happens to be Absalom's full sister. So Absalom uses all the situation to be able to get revenge, and he kills Amnon. And then, because he's supposed to be the king, and now Absalom kills him, and he's able to be the king of Israel after David dies. So the moral of the story pretty much of that message is, who are your friends? Who are you talking to? Who are you hanging out with? What are the voices that are speaking into your life? Because those voices are going to determine your destiny, you know? And so that is my message to young people is, you got to be very careful who you allow to speak into your life, because these individuals are either going to be speaking life or they're going to be speaking death into your life. And I had a lot of death speaking into my life. And if it wasn't for the mercy and grace of God, I would not be here today. Wow,
that's just that alone is like amazing to hear. I'm hoping that somebody young is listening to this and they're saying, well, you know, they're older, they don't know, you know, even though we're not that old, right. but still, but you were at this point, what was your age around that time?
So I was around like 22, 23.
22, yeah, so that's really young. I mean, 22, you know, so there's somebody who you've been through that, you know, and here's the other part that is pretty, you know, subtle, like you said, those friends that you have, right? Are they really friends? Because they're making you do bad things that they know that it's even probably bad. So they're slowly, it's almost like they don't want to do it by themselves, right? They want somebody else to, if I'm going to go down, we're all going down kind of thing.
Yeah, they're searing their conscience, and the fact that a person that used to be in church and now walked away from God and is doing it with them, it gives you a sense of like comfort, like, okay, look, like, yeah, I know I'm doing bad, but I'm not doing it on my own.
I'm not the only one, yeah, wow. That right alone would have, you know, take you to church.
Right.
What happened after that? Did you go to church?
I did after that message. Funny, interestingly enough, we had the preacher of that message called Jerry Jones, and Jerry Jones just so happened to be that he was going to be at Easter Sunday.
At the church.
At the church, and so I went. But let me back up before that. So. There was another story that happened. So I used to have a very close friend, and she was very, very friendly, very, very kind to a lot of people in that area during that time. But she was also a drug dealer, so I got close to her because of that. And then she also started dating a best friend of mine, and they broke up. And so kind of her and I kind of like kept our distance for a while. She started dating another guy, and so we weren't hanging out as much anymore. But I would still see her. And then 3 days before her 21st birthday, her and her boyfriend are pulling out of a gas station, and they get into an accident with a state trooper or a police officer, ran into them, and they flipped over 3 times. And so I get a call the next morning, and they say, "Hey, Jose, did you hear about what happened to Andrea?" And I'm like, no, she's in Jackson Hospital, and she's in a coma. And I was like, what? And so I head over there, and then the waiting room is full of people because she was so popular. Everybody knew her. Like, she grew up in that city, and everybody knew her from a little kid, and she was very passionate about school, wanted to be a teacher, and had a lot of friends. And so I show up there, and it's just the waiting room is packed, wall to wall. So the mother is a school board member. She sees me, and she says, "Jose, like, I want you to go. I want you and 2 other individuals, I want you to go and see her in the room." Like, they weren't really letting many people in. They only close family and friends. So I get into the room, and I look at her, and I just remember seeing her face, like, her head just so swollen, like it looked like a balloon had been, like, just inflated to the max, and it was about to explode. And in that moment, I just stood there, and I just felt like God in that moment, like a little still small voice tell me, "If you keep it up, this is where you're going to end up." And that just, like, shook me to my core. It put the fear of God in me. And then a couple of days later, 3 days later, they pulled the plug on her, and she died. And I just never forget the funeral, and being at the funeral, and everybody like they had at the end of the ceremony, they had a bunch of balloons so that we can release the balloons into the air, and everybody saying, "Oh, Andy, we're gonna see you in heaven. We're gonna see you in heaven." And in my mind, knowing that I know the truth, I'm like, we're living in fornication, we're doing drugs, we're partying, we're being promiscuous, and we're not gonna go to heaven. And then it was also the scenario I just had with Cole giving me that message that drove me back to the house of God. And that's Easter Sunday.
Did it all happen around that same time?
Yeah, it was all like happening at the same time. It was like God really like just really waking me up, because if I wasn't gonna wake up, something really bad was gonna happen. So I thank God that His timing is perfect, and I went back to the house of God. And that Sunday night, I was refilled with the gift of the Holy Ghost, and my life has been different ever since.
And that was at the Pentecostal of Cooper City. That's where it happened.
And that same preacher that preached that message preached that night. And my parents happened to be there. They don't attend our church. They go to another apostolic church, but they were there that night, so they were able to see me break down crying. And they had seen me crying before all those years going to church. And my mom, I remember her looking at me. She's like, "Is this real this time?" And I said, "It's real." And I called my friends and I told them, "I'm done. I'm not living that lifestyle anymore." And they're like, "Oh, you'll be back. It's just a moment. It's just a phase. You'll be back."
They were still trying to.
Yeah. They were not going to give up. And that's part of the process, is that once you come back to the house of God, you have to fully immerse yourself in the church and with the people of God, because if you don't, you're going to have all these negative influences trying to pull you out. And so you have to cut those people off. Like, right at that moment when you're coming back to the house of God, your salvation is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And your walk with God, since you're so brand new, you have to do everything you can to not get distracted by the things of this world.
It's great to hear that once again from the testimonies that we all have. I'm sure there's somebody who's watching, a parent who's watching, or hopefully a young person also watching, and you can relate and say, "You know what? I have a child, or I'm like this, and I could always change. I could." The pastor says the way to God is only one step away. You just turn around, and boom, He's gonna be there. You just have to turn around, turn to God one small step.
Amen.
So you're back in church, and you cut them off, right? You cut those friends off.
Yes.
Was that hard, or you just cut them off?
Extremely hard. I think ultimately, when you're so young, you want to be with friends. You want to be with people your age, and so I'm always going to be thankful for specific individuals in the church that just loved on me and were kind, like the Ragabeer family, Joshua Hernandez, goes by Peanut. Like, they were just good people that were just loving me. And like help me through that transition process, because it's so hard to come, like when you come back to the house of God and you don't know anyone and you feel like an outsider and everything is so foreign to you because you've been gone for so long. But they wrap their arms around me, and that's what I want to tell everyone, is that the church, like Pastor says, is a hospital. It's not a hotel. That there's a family here waiting for you to come home. And when you come home, we're not going to judge you. We're not going to criticize you. We're not going to talk bad about you. We're just going to love you and receive you with open arms, just like the father of the prodigal did. He was waiting for him on the porch, knowing that he would come back one day. And then when he came back, he rejoiced and threw a party. And that's what we're willing to do and ready to do when you come home.
Yeah, heaven does it already. So
Amen.
it's just us that we got to catch up and do the same thing.
Amen.
I find it funny how God has a sense of humor, and you're in charge, or you lead the Welcome to the Family at our church. And it's, I mean, maybe that's, you know, once again, God using what you have
Amen.
before in order to hone you in
Yes.
and push you. And here's the follow-up. The question I have is there something you're passionate about, like really passionate about?
Yeah, I am extremely passionate about, just because what I just talked about, prodigals and their parents. So a year ago, maybe more than a year ago, I kind of shared my testimony when I taught on a Wednesday night in the main sanctuary. And the title of the message was, he came to himself, right? Just like the prodigal, when he finally came to himself in the middle of the pig pen, in the middle of the mud, he woke up and he came to himself, and he realized that where he was, and that he needed to come home. And that's what happened to me. I finally, thank God, he had shook me so many times, and I finally listened, you know. And so one is the prodigal, that we're ready for you to come home. There's nothing out in this world. You know that living in this world that none of this is going to ever fill you. It's going to leave you empty. It's going to leave you with a hole that only God can fill. And you've already felt the presence of God. You may have been baptized in Jesus' name as a young child, filled with His Spirit, and you're trying to see that maybe something in this world can fill you, but none of it will. You know, and I know that nothing in this world will ever fill you. So that is one of my passions. And the second is parents, because as I saw in my own life, my parents took it very, very hard. My mom took it very hard. My dad took it very hard. My mom, she told me actually like a couple weeks ago when I was sharing, like kind of like reminiscing on everything that God had done. She said that she thought that she knew what prayer was, but she learned what prayer truly was when I walked away from God and I just lived the life that I was living. So my parents did everything that they could for me. They raised me in the apostolic church. They gave me an amazing childhood. But ultimately, there comes a point in someone's life that you're old enough to make your own decisions, and that is not a reflection of your parents. Your parents, you parents that have done what you were supposed to do, you gotta just leave this in the hands of God, which is, I know it's a hard thing to do, because I'm a father. I have a 5-year-old child, and I don't even want to imagine what that kind of pain feels like. But ultimately, you gotta trust in God, that God has a plan, and that I am a testimony to you that your prayers will work, because my mother prayed for 7 years and God finally answered her prayers.
Some parents might feel that it's, you know, they did something wrong if their child left the church or is not with them anymore. What do you say to that parent that feels that way?
I believe it's a lie from the enemy. You know, the enemy uses these situations to discourage people, to discourage seasoned saints that are serving God, and they blame themselves. But ultimately, like I just mentioned, it's not anything that you did. You did what you could, and you raised them in the house of the Lord. You take them to the house of the Lord. But ultimately, we all make our own decisions. And so, my 2 sisters, they serve God faithfully. I'm the one that chose to walk away, and they have the same parents that I had. But that's not a reflection of my parents. My parents, I couldn't have asked for better parents. They gave me the best that I could ever ask for. I just chose to walk away and be rebellious. You know, so. It's a lie from the enemy that he's trying to tell you that it's your fault, and that the prodigal is never going to come back, and that's just a lie from the enemy.
That's amazing. If you had to tell yourself back when you were 21, 20, one word, and it's hard because when you're young, you kind of don't want to hear it from anybody. Yeah. Even if we had a time machine and you went back, I think we still wouldn't hear ourselves. But if you go back to yourself, what would you tell yourself?
I think the main word would be relationship. You need to have a relationship with God. If you don't have a relationship with God, life is going to happen, and things are going to happen in your life that are going to shake you. But if you don't have your roots in Christ, and you're looking at your friends for validation, you're looking for things of this world to validate you, none of that is going to validate you. You have to have a true relationship with God, and that relationship is what's going to help you through those difficult times. And there's going to be difficult times in life, because that's how life is. But if you hold on to God's unchanging hand, you're going to be able to make it through.
I love everything you said. You know what? We could keep talking, I think, and there's other topics that we could talk.
Yeah.
But if you have heard this message and you like it, leave a like and leave a message where you're watching from. And also share this message, because there's somebody who probably wants to hear this message and they can't get it. You're gonna send it to them. And it's not about the like or anything. It's really about the sharing the algorithm and all that, but it's about you, us. We're trying to reach one person.
Hey, one is a lot.
If we're doing this for one person, it's enough.
Amen.
We did our job.
Amen.
Brother Jose,
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for being my brother. Thank you for being awesome.
Thank you for
Thank you for everything you do.
Amen.
And it's amazing to be here with you.
Thank you so much.
God bless you all. We'll see you in the next one.